Hello folks, Luke's looking out for you, and today we're looking at IoT sensing and decision-ready data. Asking the questions, what is IoT sensing? What can we sense with it? How can we take the data from that sensing and turn it into something useful? And what benefits does that provide us? So, let's get stuck in. In order to understand what IoT sensing is, let's break it up. Firstly, IoT just means Internet of Things, which is where a number of electronic devices like phones, computers, digital machines, and sensors, don't worry, we'll get there, can transfer data through the internet to a collective hub where they can then exchange and collect data. This data can then be sent to things like smartphones and computers in order to report on that data, or it can be used to remotely activate devices connected to that hub. In an example of this, let's say I have a house where a bunch of devices are connected via IoT. I'm out on a walk, and the IoT thermometers around the house inform me via my smartphone what the temperature is in each room. Or even, they could tell me the overall temperature of the house, since they can collect and combine data. I could then make a decision to remotely turn off my heaters, which are also part of my IoT network, as I still have a couple hours left on my walk and I want to save some money. Vice versa though, I could also control my heaters to come on when I'm on my way home, so I have a warm and toasty house to come back to. IoT devices could also be set to work without the need for human interaction. If I have the same setup as before, I could have my heaters set to turn on whenever it gets lower than 18 degrees. Or I could have them set to turn off whenever it gets hotter than 22 degrees. So essentially, IoT sensing is a collection of data gathering devices that can exchange and collate data into a variety of forms and formats. So why is this useful? Well, as we discussed earlier, this can then allow us to make actionable decisions, either manually, like when I messaged my home to turn on the heaters before I came home from my walk, or automatically with our integrated thermometer and heater setup. That's what we mean by IoT. As for the sensing part, well, sensing just means the ability to observe real-world characteristics and conditions, and then take those observations and turn them into a data point. And different types of devices can give us different types of information, like cameras giving us visual, or thermometers giving us heat, and so on and so forth. Now we know what IoT sensing is, it seems prudent to ask, what can we sense? Essentially, what sensors are there available to us, and what information can they give us about the world around us? Well, there's a lot. Like a lot. So we're going to do this one as a lightning round. Buckle up. First up are temperature sensors, coming in a bunch of different varieties, from thermistors to thermocouples to RTDs, all giving some form of temperature readout either about an environment or a specific object. Some very cheap and therefore basic in their output and low resolution, and some very expensive and therefore very accurate both in their readings and their resolution. Next up is infrared sensors, which can emit or detect the infrared spectrum, having a wide variety of uses across multiple different sectors and industries, including smartphone production, medicine, aerospace industries, agriculture, and even construction. Then we have humidity sensors detecting moisture content in the air, useful for regulating indoor climates, but also useful in greenhouses and in the manufacturing of highly precise devices, ironically like the microprocessors used in IoT devices. In a similar vein, we have air quality indicators or gas sensors. These devices help us to identify air composition and are useful in industries when we're trying to detect toxic gases. We have pressure sensors helping us to detect the levels of pressure in gases and fluids, motion sensors for motion, light for light, proximity, microphone and sound detectors, chemical, optical, laser level, magnetometers, ultrasonic, current measurement, pulse contact, and hold! Just time out for me a second. Let's just agree between us, because I'm already trying to keep this video as short as it is, that if there's anything that you want to detect, there is likely a sensor and or group of sensors out there that can get the job done for you. Okay? Okay. Moving on. Moving on. So, now that you've got your sensors set up and you've got all your data, how can you make the best use of it? So now you know what IoT sensing is, and let's say you've got all your sensors set up, how can you make the best use of them and create what we like to call decision-ready data? Well, first things first, brakes on! Don't put up any sensors yet until you can answer these 4 questions first. Number 1, what problem are you trying to solve? 2, how much is it costing you not to solve it? Number 3, what information and therefore what sensors do we need to achieve that? And 4, how can you present this data so that it is actionable? This is important because otherwise we fall into the trap of collecting lots and lots of data but have no clue what to do with any of it, potentially costing us a lot of money and time. But this is where Dashboard can save the day. Dashboard is a piece of programming that allows you to take your data and present it in an effective and actionable way. How? Well, think about it like driving through a city when there's lots of traffic going on. Behind the scenes, there are a bunch of complicated algorithms going to the street signs in order to help control that traffic. But luckily, that isn't what we as drivers are presented with. Instead, we are presented with a nice simple red, amber, green traffic light system. Anything more, and we wouldn't be able to make sense of anything in any sort of sensible time frame. This is what Dashboard allows us to do with data. It allows us to format it and present it so that at a 5-second glance, we can decide whether to action something or not. And this is what we mean by decision-ready data. With that in mind, let's build an example together of how we can use a dashboard and a network of sensors to give us some decision-ready data using the 4 questions from earlier as a guideline. To start with, let's say we have a big industrial greenhouse and we're trying to grow some tomatoes. Well, we need to ask ourselves the first question: what problem are we trying to solve? And it's useful to make this a single sentence with a practical outcome. For us in our example, it could be, I want to see a better yield from my tomatoes. Next, we need to determine what is it costing us to not solve the problem. Now, for clarity, this doesn't have to be directly monetary. It could mean time, health, quality of life. Whatever that cost is, it should help to determine what the budget for fixing the problem should be. If we do an easy money-based example though, and say we're losing £50 a year from a less than stellar tomato crop, but the solution to fix this is going to cost us £1,000, it's not going to be worth it to fix the problem. It might be if we start adding in quality of life factors, but we'd have to weigh that up. On the other hand, if we were losing, say, £500 a year, well, that £1,000 solution starts to look pretty great. That's why this is such a crucial step in the process, so that we aren't burned by our solution costs. Then we need to ask what information, and therefore what sensors, do we need to achieve this? Now, this will depend not only on the data we need to collect, but also the accuracy of that data, the rate at which that data comes through, and of course the budget. But we've already gone into that in detail, so we won't go any further. To keep things simple in our example, we know that tomatoes are needy little fruits. And yes, indeed, they are fruits, and they have an optimum temperature that they like to grow at. So we'll need to know the temperature in our greenhouses. We also know that they have an ideal humidity level and a minimum amount of light they need every day to grow. Thus, we'll need a temperature sensor, a humidity sensor, and a light sensor. Then we should have all the tools we need to start gathering the information we want to see. As a side note, if you discover there are other factors that control tomato growth, you can always add them at a later date because IoT networks are fully scalable. And finally, how do we present this data so that it is actionable? Well, we could do what a lot of folk do and make a graph, which is useful for identifying long-term trends, but it can sometimes take longer to interpret what a graph means, and furthermore, what actions need to be taken depending on where the graph is pointing. That being said, we could have a graph to gain useful trend data on one half of the dashboard, but we could also have a traffic light system on the other, where if the temperature, humidity, and light are within their respective sweet spots, it shows up on the dashboard as green, showing that action is not necessary at the moment. If it is just outside of these parameters, it could show up as amber, signifying that action is needed fairly soon to maintain optimization, and we could have it show up as red whenever it is completely outside of its growing conditions and thus needing immediate action. This 4-question method combined with IoT and dashboard is effective because it allows us to identify a solution, budget for it, because our solution should be affordable, right? Gather the data that we need and then present it in a way that is actionable, which already sounds good on its own, but there are a host of other benefits. The benefits of IoT sensing and data dashboard are numerous due to their sheer versatility, but here are some of the broader benefits that users can expect from the pairing. Number 1, tailored data sensing. Firstly, due to the flexibility provided by the sheer variety of sensors available, IoT sensing and data dashboard can be tailored to suit literally any business. Number 2, minimal training. As well as being easily tailored, it also requires minimal training to be used effectively. Therefore, if your data dashboard is set up efficiently by someone that knows how, then anyone in your business can be taught to use it. This not only makes it highly accessible, but also reduces workplace bottlenecks. Number 3, reduced labor waste. Another benefit is the reduced labor waste provided by having decision-ready data. Because dashboards can be set to display whenever a task needs actioning, or even give us alerts and alarms when a task needs actioning, it can help save precious time and labor efforts on things like routine maintenance checks. Of course, we can even take it one step further and have the dashboard's output set to control whatever it is that needs actioning, like with our thermometer and heater integrated setup in our example earlier. Number 4, trend detection. As well as immediately actionable data, dashboards can also be set to give us long-term data, as we discussed earlier. This is really useful in identifying long-term trends and can help us to identify shifts in customer habits or wasteful areas of the organization, and much, much more. Number 5, reduced energy costs. In addition to this, by responding to environmental and seasonal changes, as well as saving energy in unused spaces, sites using IoT are more likely to see a reduction in their energy costs. Number 6, affordable and scalable. Lastly, all of this, the dashboard, the sensors, it's all affordable and scalable, with individual sensors being relatively cheap and dashboards having the ability to add or remove as many sensors as are desired from the network. It's easy to build the system you want whilst keeping in a budget and still keeping room to grow in the future and create richer data visualizations. With all those benefits, it's easy to detect why IoT sensing and data dashboard are such a promising combination. Yeah, no, that was a bad one. I apologize. I'll see myself out. And there you have it. That's a brief overview of IoT sensing and decision-ready data provided by dashboard software. If you enjoyed any of the topics here today and you would like to learn more, feel free to get in touch with us. But until then, consider me an optical money-saving sensor because, as always, Luke's looking out for you. Catch you in the next one.